I just aquascaped this epic 3-foot long aquarium to simulate what it would be like in nature for my aquatic pets. Follow along as we aquascape this together. After 7 long years, I have decided that I'm going to rescape this tank. So there really is no other reason for me to aquascape this tank and redo it other than simply knowing I can do it better. After several years of being an aquarist and learning new techniques and doing different types of styles, I can't help but feel that I can give the inhabitants in this tank a better life. What I'm basically going for is a Walstad-Style tank, but I'm going to use nothing but rocks and a Vallisneria and dwarf hairgrass-like plant. I'm going to reuse the substrate that's in this aquarium, as it's going to be the richest in nutrients and the cheapest. I started by taking the plants out, as I figured that I would have a better time catching the fish instead of chasing them around the plants. Most of the Anubias within this aquarium I acquired from just the 2 plants that I started 7 years ago with. Using a Tupperware container, I took some water out for any shrimp and snails that I find. During this process, the tank became super murky, so I let it sit for a bit. Okay, so we still got a few brilliant rasboras in there, and a few shrimp, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push all of this substrate back, and then siphon the water out and collect everything I can. This process was super tedious, as I did not want to crush or bury any of the shrimp within the substrate, so I had to move super slow and meticulously when moving the substrate. I then started to drain the water to make the shrimp and fish a lot easier to catch. At first, I started to remove the substrate with a net, careful not to scratch the glass, and then I removed the rest using a big bin to save time. I then got the little stuff with the net. Leaving some water left over, I used that to mix the potting soil with in order to create the mud that it's needed for the Walstad tank. I added more as needed. I then started to push the soil back away from the glass and flatten it out to create more depth. This helps create a more uniform layer of sand across the tank. Using the substrate that I took from the tank, mixed with other substrates from previous tanks I've taken apart, I laid about 1 to 2 inches of sand across it. Using the old substrate has quite a few benefits. It harbors a plethora of beneficial bacteria, as well as a bunch of organisms. By doing this, creates a super nutrient-rich base, as well as a more balanced and stable ecosystem. When placing the rocks in the aquarium, I used egg crate in order to make the rocks not sink into the substrate over time. This helps create a more stable base and not allow the rocks to shift. To keep the rocks in place, I used cotton and super glue to bond them together. I then placed another rock similar in size, trying to work with the angles and making it visually appealing. I then used another piece of egg crate to prop the rock up and give it more of an angle. I then started playing with some other rocks, trying to get that right look. I finally landed on this rock. I shoved it into the substrate and put another piece of egg crate behind it to prop it up. The back right corner was looking bare, and this rock had a lot of definition with the holes, so I decided it looked best there. I then took another piece of egg crate and put it underneath the rock in order to keep it from shifting over time. I started to put a few more rocks here and finally landed on this one. I tried my best to keep this tank looking as natural as possible, while also keeping in mind the scale of things. I kept placing various sized rocks in different spots, trying to visualize what it would look like in nature. I kinda got ahead of myself and started placing rocks wildly, but there was just something off about this middle section. I needed something to fill it, and this rock looked just right. Now this back left section is looking a little bare, so I decided to put a little bit bigger of a rock there. I then placed another piece of egg crate under the rock in order to keep the rock from shifting or sinking into the substrate over time. I took a small rock and using a hammer I broke it into a few small pieces in order to create some accent stones for around the other bigger rocks. And because I got ahead of myself and started placing rocks wildly, I kinda started to notice that this tank was looking a little too symmetrical. So I took some rocks out and moved some around, and I finally landed on this scape here. I took more of the substrate and started to fill in around the rocks, covering the egg crate and making the rocks like they were sunk into the substrate. The substrate you see that I capped the soil with is a mixture of all-purpose sand, Maggitarium rocks, as well as aqua soil, and even some potting soil from other tanks, but there isn't a lot in there that will affect the water quality. I have the same substrate in my beta aquarium, and the dwarf hairgrass that I planted loves it and is going wild. I then started to plant some jungle Vallisneria. I made sure to dot it around the tank, as over time this will grow using runners. In the back right corner I planted what I'm pretty sure is pink flamingo cryptocorn. The reason for the leaves not being pink is because I do not inject this tank with CO2. It is a low-tech aquarium. I then took the other runners it produced and planted them in the far left. Over time, as these grow, they will cover up the intake to the filter. I then took some cryptocorn lucans from other tanks and started planting them at the base of the aquariums. These cryptocrines in particular I had to plant dip, which involves taking 1 part 3% peroxide and 2 parts water. Then submerge the plant for about 60 seconds, but I did less because I've never done it before. I was worried of the plant melting. To fill the tank up, I used a combination of a paper towel and a cup with holes melted into it to disrupt the water flow and not disturb any of the substrate. After filling the aquarium, I then took a toothbrush and cleaned off any of the debris on the rocks. This obviously made the aquarium super cloudy, so I decided that another water change was necessary. I filled the aquarium back up and reinstalled the aquarium heater. I then put the intake in place using the suction cup. Worried the water flow might disturb the substrate, I turned the filter down prior to turning it on. The filter I'm using is a Fluval 107 canister filter, and it has been running on this tank for a multitude of years. Because of this, theoretically the tank should automatically be cycled, but I'm still going to keep a close eye on it. I am now taking the Buciflorangia from the previous tank and dotting it throughout the front of the aquarium. I played with the placement of it for a bit, and finally landed on something I like.
Okay, the tank is mostly done. I have this piece of Buciflorangia here, and I think the best place to put it would be on top of this rock back here. So I'm just going to wedge it in here, and I think that just makes it look a lot better.
The first to go in were the snails. There are 2 Nyrite snails and 3 rabbit snails. They were followed by the Neocaridina shrimp. There is a mixture of reds, browns, and even some blues. Next was our beautiful centerpiece fish, which is the red flame dwarf gourami. He went straight towards the bottom, as that's to be expected, as this is a new environment. Following up the dwarf gourami is the brilliant Rasaboras. Due to the stress, they are a little discolored, but they will brighten up over time. The colors pair very well with dwarf gourami. After the brilliant Rasbora, I added the albino bristlenose Placo. I think adding him is going to add some nice movement along the bottom. It is the next day, and I say the tank is looking absolutely great. The fish seem to love it. The gourami is hiding over there right now because I'm over here with the camera. I don't think I'm going to make any more changes besides maybe adding some plants and crypts here and there, but I love how this turns out. I feel this setup just brings out the schooling behavior of the fish even more. This just seems way more natural and looks so much better in my opinion.
Since I have a bunch of potting soil at the bottom, the plants should just go absolutely insane. One more thing we gotta add to this tank is the bamboo shrimp that we took out. Let's go ahead and get him out. He did not make that very easy, but now that we got him, I think he's gonna enjoy his new home. Now when I'm looking at this tank, I did notice something that you just can't really see looking at it. Down here under the rock, I left a small gap. Now that gap will collect food and debris and whatnot and start rotting and cause a big problem for the future. So I have a solution for that. The solution I came up with is this. It's a bottle I made a while ago to add more sand into an aquarium with ease. I went behind the rock instead, but I accidentally poured a little too much sand, as you can see here. The rock is completely filled now so that no debris will be stuck underneath it. An update on the plants, I did end up adding 2 red flame swords to the back of this aquarium, as I ordered one for my beta aquarium, but it came with 3. Comment what you think I could have done different, or what you personally would have done different. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you liked the video,